It is Thursday, time for Worldview with Denis Campbell. Denis is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine and host of Worldview Show on YouTube at youtube.com/worldview show. Well, Denis, we now know of the passing at age 87 of Margaret Thatcher, the first female prime minister of the United Kingdom. There has been, well, during her life, there was widespread disagreement over her legacy. Posthumously, there continues to be widespread disagreement and controversy over her passing. Give us a little bit of a sense of the types of discussions and protests, really, that we've seen.
Well, Margaret Thatcher Baroness Thatcher was a divisive figure in British politics. Particularly, we're based in Wales, and here, as well as in Scotland and Northern Ireland, there was considerable more celebration at her passing because of the impact that a lot of the Thatcherism policies had on coal mines and miners, and basically the fabric of what had been a labor union-based system. So most of the protests that you're going to see are going to come out of that particular background. Now, I'm of the opinion that I disagree with everything that she stood for and who she was, and she was an historical figure here in this country. She was the first woman prime minister, and out of respect to the family, it's probably a good idea for everybody to behave, at least for the period of the next week or so until she's laid to rest on Wednesday, and then the debate can begin anew about what her policies were and what they meant. We're seeing quite a bit of pundit opportunism on both sides of the pond, where people are quick to rush to judgment and rush to make statements about who she was. And quite frankly, because she was such a divisive figure, you don't accomplish anything in life if you don't make enemies. And obviously she had lots of enemies. So some would say that she has indeed accomplished a lot in her life.
Well, it's fascinating because not only is there a lot of discussion happening from, my home country of Argentina, and people discussing how Margaret Thatcher's policy affected Argentina, and from many parts of the world, but there's fascinating video which you sent me from the floor of the House of Commons of Labour MP Glenda Jackson's speech, where she went on, I wouldn't characterize it as a tirade, but some are calling it a tirade, against Thatcherism. And it was interesting because they called into question whether her comments were in order, and the verdict, at least on the floor of the House of Commons, seemed to be, nothing that is being said here is against our rules. But that being said, maybe it's not the most polite type of statement to be making.
Exactly, and Speaker John Bercow is, he's a fairly divisive figure himself. He is the gentleman that actually spoke at the end of that video that I sent you, and he's basically said, "Look, we all have opinions, and this is an official debate, and discussion, and people should be allowed to say whatever it is they say." It was clearly not hate speech. It was clearly not anything that could be punishable or prosecutable in any form. This was a representative of an area of North London that has been hit exceptionally hard by the policies of Margaret Thatcher, speaking out against the policies of Thatcherism. And I think that's one of the distinctions that kind of gets blurred when you start looking at it from a commentary point of view, is that criticize the policies without necessarily demeaning the accomplishments of the individual. And I think that's what a lot of people were upset at, was that they tended to blur the line on the Conservative or Tory side, which was her party, and saying that she was actually attacking Margaret Thatcher, when clearly, when you look at the tape and you listen to what she said, she was attacking the conditions that brought on. And quite frankly, most people would look at what she's done and what Ronald Reagan have done and what George Bush II have done in terms of exacerbating the class divide in this world. We used to have just 2 or 3 classes. Now, I read an article last week, there are about 7 classes. But if you're at the bottom of any of those, you're not doing particularly well here in the United Kingdom.
Dennis, can you give us an overview, so to speak? I think for a lot of our viewers in the U.S. and really probably in a lot of parts of the world, we may anecdotally see criticisms or praise of Margaret Thatcher. But could you give us a sense of currently, if you survey people in the United Kingdom now and kind of do like a retrospective approval rating of Margaret Thatcher, where do the numbers actually stand? How popular is she today?
Well, as a figure, she was basically a shopkeeper's daughter who went to Parliament, and in a hierarchical upper class party, which is what the Conservatives or the Tories were, she basically turned that party on its ear. And if you look at, how she came into power and how she wielded power, it's been often said during the course of this week, if you worked for Margaret Thatcher, whether it was in the House at number 10 Downing or a member of her staff, they absolutely adored her. If you were a minister in the cabinet of Margaret Thatcher, you were constantly pulling your hair out because she wasn't playing the game by the traditional rules here in the United Kingdom. So on the whole, you will see a huge outpouring of support because the British people feel it is their duty to attend these. It's not exactly a state funeral, but it will be an official funeral. There will be the public stoic form of support for the family. Then you have to look, though, at the debate of her policies, what happened there. And there, pretty much the gloves are off. I mean, it's a very divided nation here. And if you tend to fall on the conservative or the what you would call the Republican GOP side, you will think that she was indeed Saint Margaret, just as the GOP in the United States lionizes Saint Ronald Reagan. Neither of them can do no wrong in the eyes of the conservative or Tory party. If you look, though, at the Labour or the Democratic side of the agenda, you will find that there is very, very strong opinions against, as you saw with MP Jackson. And she's, a very famous actress, but she's also spent 20 years as a member of Parliament, speaking out, not without the support, but without the support, by the way, of anybody else in the chamber. If you look at that chamber, the Labour side of the aisle is almost completely empty. So nobody saw this coming. Yet people on that side will come to her defense because she was speaking truth about the policies of Margaret Thatcher. One might just question whether or not that was the time to do it.
All right, Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. Subscribe to Denis's YouTube show at youtube.com/worldviewshow. Denis, thanks as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.